Okay, this video is dedicated to all of the vertically challenged people out there. If you're like me, the petites are too short and the regulars are too long. I'm sort of in this like middle space, so I have to hem almost all of my pants. So I'm going to show you how to hem these pants, but also retain the original hem so it looks like they haven't been hemmed at all. So all you're going to need is a sewing machine, a thread color that matches your jeans, a hand sewing needle, and a thimble if you want to protect your fingers. Oh, and also some nice sharp scissors, okay? That's all you need. No special skills, no special tools. So first of all, tip number 1 is that this hack works best with straight legs. So this is like a super wide leg pant, but if you have skinny jeans that are straight legged, if you have a pant that is very slightly tapered, it'll work as long as you're not taking a whole bunch off. So if it's slightly tapered and you're taking like an inch or two off, you can sort of zhuzh it in and make it work. But if it's tapered and you're getting a big chunk out, it's going to be harder to match up a narrow with a wide, okay? But this is a straight wide leg, so it should be fairly straightforward. The very first thing you want to consider is what context you're going to be wearing your pants. Are they fancy pants? Are you going to be wearing heels with them maybe? If so, go ahead and throw on your heels, and then you can figure out from there what length you want to make your pant legs. On the other hand, maybe they're just casual pants. Honestly, these ones here are probably just going to be house pants, so I just want to make sure that they're not dragging on the ground. I don't have to be super precise while I'm doing this. If you're going to be wearing your pants out and about, like a normal person, then you're going to want to put on your favorite pair of sneakers, and that will help you decide how long you want them to be. So context is actually pretty important here because you don't want to spend all this time hemming your pants and getting it just right and then realizing that you've hemmed them for the wrong occasion. Tip number 2, and maybe I should have started with this tip actually, but it's a good rule of thumb to wash your pants before you hem them because again, you don't want to do all the work of hemming to an exact length and then have your jeans shrink in the wash and then they're just not right anymore. So to decide what length I want, I like to do a little cuff, and then I'm paying attention to the width of my hem too, because that's going to be folded down, and then this will be my final length. Not this. This is the excess. This is what's going to be the final length. So I want to make sure it's sort of uniform. I'll check this, and then I'm going to stand straight, maybe wiggle my knees a little bit, and see if it's landing how I want it to land. So when you found the length that you like, make sure it's as even as possible all the way around. And I would add just a couple pins to the outside here just to keep it in place, and then I can even it up and make it more neat when I take the pants off. So I'll do the same thing also on this other side. So I'll go ahead and do this off camera, and I'll show you what it looks like after that. So once you have a good idea of where you want your hem to be, take a minute to even it up, make sure it's even across the way. You might even check one pant leg against the other, except you'll notice that mine isn't quite even because this leg is a little longer than this leg. It was irregular from the store, which would have been annoying if I wasn't going to hem. But I was going to hem anyway, so not that big of a deal. But you want to make sure that it's as even as possible. Then you're going to place your pins right along this hemline, okay? And short pins are probably better, but I only have these big long ones, so I'll sort of thread them through several times, like so. But I still poke myself. I don't like using pins, but it's sort of pretty necessary for this process. Another thing to keep in mind while you're pinning is that for best results, you want to match up the side seams. So you want to be able to fold this down and have that seam as close as possible to make it look the most natural. So on both sides, you want to pay attention to that seam. Of course, I think nobody's going to notice if it's off except for you, but it's still nice to give it a little extra attention to make it look as good as possible. So don't overly stress about it, but just keep an eye on it. And then once that is done, it's time to try them back on again. Fold up all of this excess fabric right up into the pant leg and then fold down the hem so you can get an idea of where the hem is going to land. So at this point, you're checking to make sure that the hem is hitting exactly where you want it to hit on the front and the back. So you want to turn around and check the sides. You want to check the back. You might think it's hitting too high up in the back and you might want to lower it down, but keep it the same in the front. So you'll have to do a little bit of zhuzhing to make the hem fall a little bit longer in the back. And some people might want a more asymmetrical hem where it hangs longer in the back than the front. And this is the time to figure out where and how big of a difference you want from the front to the back. I personally like it to be even front and back. That's just my personal preference, especially with these everyday jeans that I'm just going to be wearing around the house. It doesn't matter. I don't need to get fancy with it. And definitely don't feel discouraged if you have to do this several times, where you have to adjust the pins, check the length, adjust the pins, because this is the most important part. This is where you're going to get your pants exactly how you want them. And it's also the hardest part. It's pretty easy from here on out. So get the fit as perfect as you can. Don't rush it. Okay, so for my pants here, they're exactly the length that I want them. So I'm going to take some time to move my pins down. So I'm going to do about like maybe a finger width away from that seam line now. I'm just moving them far enough away that I won't run over them with my sewing machine, because I don't stop for pins. I get into a groove and then I completely forget that they're there. So if you are good about moving your pins before sewing, you probably don't have to move them at all. But I am not, so I'm taking some precautions. So I'll do this for all of my pins and then I'll meet you over at the sewing machine. First things first, I'm going to remove this work table. I don't need it for this. I have a matching thread in here. It's just a plain old navy. It's not a perfect match, but it'll do. Okay, here we go. I'm going to bring my pants over here. I like to start near one of the seams just to get it out of the way. So I have my pants surrounding this arm of my sewing machine. And yes, this is a walking foot. And no, I don't need it. I'm just too lazy to change it right now. But basically, what you're trying to do is you're trying to sew as close to this seam as possible. So I'm going to place my needle very intentionally right next to it. You don't want to sew over it though, okay? So try to sew as close without going over this way. I would rather sew over this way instead of over this hem. It'll be less obvious and also it won't have as much bulk. Okay, so here we go. As close as possible. Go as slow as you need to go. Don't rush it. Especially over these seams, because they can get pretty bulky. And I've had trouble with machines in the past getting over these. I'm hoping this machine, I haven't hemmed in a year or so I haven't used this machine to hem yet. Okay, that wasn't so bad. Just keeping an eye on that seam line. Slow and steady. And this is actually a little difficult for me because I can't see with the camera in front of my face very well. But I think I'm getting close. So as you go, you can just pull this forward so you don't have too much tension pulling. And there's no need to backstitch at the beginning, because once you get back to where you started, you can just over stitch or stitch over what you already did. Okay? And if I didn't have the camera in front of my face, I'd probably be doing this faster. This is probably the easiest part of this whole process. And don't feel daunted, because you can always, if you make a mistake, it's so easy to fix it here. You just seam rip it and try again. Okay? So sew all the way around both pants. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to support this channel, check out my merch shop and buy me a coffee page. Okay, let's get back to the video. Okay, at this point, you have sewn the hems on both legs of your pants. But you're not done yet, okay? Don't cut this fabric. Leave it where it is. You're going to fold down the hem and you're going to check all around. I like to pay attention to the seams on the side. That's close enough for me. And then I will look all the way down to the other seam. I'm looking for tucks or folds or some sort of irregularity that I wouldn't be happy with. And check the other seam, that's close enough for me. Keep going like so. Okay, so it looks visually good. Now I'm going to take some time to try them on and make sure that they didn't get wobbly or nothing accidentally got unaligned while I was pinning, and they still hit exactly where I want them to hit on my leg. I tried them on and they fit well. They're exactly what I want. So now it's time to finish them off. And you have two choices. You can do the easy way or the long-lasting way. And I like the long-lasting way. But let's talk about the fast way first. So what you would do is you would cut this excess about 1/4 inch away from your seam line that you sewed. And then you're just going to do a zigzag stitch over that raw edge. Or if you have an overlocking machine, you can use that. A serger, whatever you've got, you can just want to secure this edge so it doesn't get all raggedy. You can, of course, just cut and leave it, but it's gonna get real shaggy. So I prefer to finish off those raw cuts. So that's the easy way. Now I'll show you the long-lasting way. I have this handy dandy 1/2 inch wide ruler and a friction pin, but you can use a regular ruler and whatever pin you want because it's not going to show. So I'm going to line up the ruler with the edge of the hem, take my friction pin, and just real messily mark this line. And it doesn't matter that much. It doesn't have to be super precise. So there's my line. I'll move the pants and then do it all over again. I'm going to do it all the way around. It's about now that you know that I am not a seamstress. If it wasn't apparent before, it is apparent now. I'm not a seamstress. I think they're much more exact than I am. And I'm much more casual with all of this. You can barely see that one, but it's enough. So I'm doing 1/2 inch. You could do more if you want, but I wouldn't go any smaller than 1/2 inch. Now I'm going to cut on that line all the way around. Okay, so here's what I've got. I've got the raw edge all the way around. I cut off the fold, so it's looking like this. Now I want to pay really close attention to what I'm cutting next. So I want the excess fabric that is closest to the hem. You see that? So I want to leave this fabric alone. It's closest to the leg. And I'm taking the hem excess and I'm going to cut that down. I'm going to eyeball it about at least half the width of what it is now. About 1/4 inch, maybe a little less. Okay? And this is going to look really messy because I am not a professional, but this works every time. So here we go. Here's how it's looking now. And I actually pinned down the excess fabric because I almost accidentally cut through both layers, because it was hard to hold down and cut at the same time. So I'm going to take out these pins and you'll see the difference now. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the longer one and fold it over the shorter and then fold it over again so it'll look sort of like this, and then I'm going to hand sew that down. So I'm going to, if you're familiar with the applique stitch, or if you do binding on quilts, that's the stitch I'm going to use to fold it down. So here, a little closer look. I'm going to fold over the shorter part, and then fold over again. And I'm going to do this just in front of the TV. I'm not going to prepare anything. I'm just going to fold as I go. And that means it's going to be a little wobbly and everything, but it doesn't matter because you're not going to see it. Only I'm going to see it. Okay? And the reason I'm folding it down towards the hem, and I didn't cut it the opposite way to fold up towards the pants, is because this is still a double layer of fabric. So I can sew and make sure that my needle goes between the two layers of fabric instead of poking all the way out to the front of the fabric. So it's going to be hidden from the front. I will admit this is pretty fiddly at first, but I think that you'll get the hang of it as you go on. And abandon your perfectionism because it might be a little wobbly. In fact, I'll go get another pair of pants that I've done this to and you can see what it looks like. This is another pair of wide leg pants, very well loved and worn out. But you can see this is the hem. And this is after like hundreds and hundreds of washings. I've had these pants for a long time. And it looks a little bit different because this hem is not as wide. So is like half the width. The trickiest part probably is right around here. You can see I cut this overlocked seam off of this so that I didn't have to mess with all that bulk when I was sewing. And it worked just fine. There's hardly any fraying. And the added benefit of this finishing method is that your hem won't flip up in the wash, because in some of my other pants before I started using this method, they would come out of the wash and the hem would be folded up like this and it'd be really annoying. I'd either have to iron it to get it to flatten out, or I just take it out and dry it flat. So it's a little bit of extra work, but it's well worth it. And it does not need to be perfect. Nobody's gonna see it but you. Okay, here is my needle and thread, which doesn't really match, but it doesn't matter at this point. So I'm just gonna put a knot here at the end, just one strand, make a pretty big knot. Pull that through, a little knot, and I'll get started. Okay, stick with me here because I'm having a little trouble keeping everything in focus. So I'm going to fold over that first piece and then fold over the, let's call it a packet, the packet of fabric. Then I can take my needle and I'll just tuck it back here somewhere underneath. And I'm going through just that first layer of fabric. I'm not going all the way through. Okay? So I'm just sort of anchoring my thread here and I can get started. So I'll come up through the folded over layers, pull through, and then right where I began on this side, I'm going to go right back here underneath and pick up that first layer of fabric and come through the top layer. So I'm going through the back and the top at once, but I'm not going all the way through. Okay, so there's my first stitch, and I'm just going to keep going on like that. So here I came out, so I'm going to go in down here, come out again through the top over here, trying not to poke myself, pull through. I came out here, so I'm going to go back in right beside it through the top layer of the original hem and then out through that folded over part. And that is basically all there is to it. And you'll get faster and faster as you go. Anyone who's bound a quilt knows that. You can also see that you can see where I'm sewing, but it really doesn't matter because it's not showing on the front. And if it bothers you, pick a better matching thread. Okay, so you'll just keep going like that all the way around. As you run out of the pre-folded stuff, you'll just sort of fold and tuck as you go, fold and tuck as you go. Super simple, maybe a little fiddly, but I have confidence in you. You can do this. You'll get the hang of it. Don't give up too quick. So put on a good movie or maybe find an audiobook that you like. You can listen to that while you do this, and you'll find that it flies by. Okay, here we go. Finished the first one. Not perfect, but it is plenty neat and it's going to last a really long time. Out, and then here is the finished result. Okay, up close. And then imagine this all the way from your eye line down to the ground. No one's ever going to notice that. There's still the original top stitching, the original cuff, and it just looks like a regular pair of pants. No one's going to notice, especially if you can get your side seams lined up well. Okay, so I finished one, I'm on to the other. So good luck to all of you out there who are trying this method. Don't start with your very favorite pair of pants. Allow yourself to learn and grow on a pair of pants you're not quite as fond of, or maybe one that you've outgrown. You can use it as a test subject. So good luck. Take your time. Don't rush. You can do it. I know you can do it. Thanks for spending time with me today, quilters. If you want to support this channel and help me buy supplies and materials for future videos, please visit my Buy Me a Coffee page linked in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss upcoming videos. And I'll see you again real soon. Bye!